What is happening in this House this evening, and he very well knows that. Yes, Mr. Speaker.
I call the honourable member Scott Simpson.
I move the question be now put.
It's getting pretty thin.
I think that I will hear Ian Lees-Galloway.
I must say I do appreciate receiving the call, Mr. Chair. It's been a considerable amount of time since I had an opportunity to speak in the committee stage on this bill, and I'm very pleased to be able to talk about the title and the commencement of this bill. The title, as has been traversed, is an extremely misleading title, the Mixed Ownership Model Bill. I prefer Damien O'Connor's submission that it should be the Mixed Up Ownership Model Bill. That would be a far more appropriate title for the bill. But I actually want to talk to the amendment that the Minister wants to make to the title of the bill, because the Minister not only wants to split the bill into two, but his SOP would see the title amended to the State-Owned Enterprises Amendment Act. Well, that's an even more misleading title than what we already started with. This isn't an amendment to our state-owned enterprises. This is the gutting of our state-owned enterprises. This is taking away state-owned enterprises from public ownership. This is taking from the many and giving to the 1%. That's what this bill is all about. This isn't some small technical amendment to our state-owned enterprises. This is a fundamental change to our public assets and the public good that they can be used for, Mr. Chair. That's what. Sorry, what was that? You'll keep. He says, Cam Calder says that the government is keeping the assets. Well, I tell you what, if Cam Calder wanted the government to keep the assets, he would support some of the other supplementary order papers on this part, and he would support the 75% supermajority amendment in the name of Chris Hipkins if he really wanted the government to actually hold on to these assets. But coming back to Mr. Riles, say that again. Say that again, Mr. Calder. No, still doesn't want it on the record. Coming back to Mr. Riles' supplementary order paper, and that is to split the bill into two, and also to commence to have a ability for the Governor-General by order in council to commence the Act at different points. Now, this is actually something that could be supported from the opposition, because we want to see how big the public backlash is against the sale of assets when the first asset is sold. And we want the government to feel the burn of the public backlash against the sale of that first asset, and for them to have the opportunity to see the error of their ways and to stop the process right there. They should stop the process right now. They do not have a majority. They do not have a mandate. They do not have support for this, but they will really see the party. Now, I'm interested to hear what Chris Finlayson says about the party vote in Palmerston North. Chris Finlayson says, what about the party vote in Palmerston North? Well, I'm glad that that member has raised that issue, because I've run the numbers. And 55% of people in Palmerston North voted for parties that were opposed to selling off our state-owned assets. 55% of people in Palmerston North opposed selling off our state assets at the election. So I know my electorate, Mr. Finlayson, who doesn't have an electorate, could never win an electorate. I know that the people that I represent are opposed to selling off state-owned assets, and I'm pleased. I thank Mr. Finlayson for raising that issue, because I am very pleased to tell the House about that, Mr. Speaker. Now, I would also like to address the amendment in the name of Grant Robertson, and that is to take this bill back to the Finance and Expenditure Committee, because this government ran roughshod over the political process, the democratic process. They belittled members. Maggie Barry acted like she was on a talk show, a talkback show, bullying people who submitted to the committee, asking people what party they voted for. That's the way this was handled. They cut the process short. They brought it back to the House 5 weeks early. People are saying this is because they don't want to see what the result of the referendum is. I know why they brought it back early. It's because their majority in the House is so wafer thin they don't want to lose John Banks. They don't want to lose John Banks, because then they know they're in deep, deep trouble, because they won't have even that one vote majority. That's what the rush is about. That's what the rush is about, because this government knows that if the police inquiry find anything wrong with John Banks's donations, their majority is gone, because that's how thin their majority is in this House, and because they have no mandate to sell off these assets. So I personally support part of Tony Ryle's amendment, because it will give this government the opportunity to see how deeply, deeply unpopular this policy is.
I call the honourable member Maggie Barry.
I move the question be now put.